And so the last 10 years was the decade of the artisan.
Yeah.
The next 10 years will be the decade of the digital artisan. And so we need to prepare our artisans to be digitally savvy. And that means that they need to be skilled in digital skills, digital literacy, data literacy, cyber literacy, and they need to know how to work with machines and apply those skills such as coding, analytics, predictive analytics, working with 3D printing machines, etc.
Welcome to the CHIETA podcast. My name is Sipho Masigo. This is CHIETA at Work. And of course, today I'm sitting with the CEO of CHIETA, Mr. Yeshen Pillay. Today we're going to talk about something very interesting. It's talking about the digital skills for the artisans. And of course, let me not take too much time and dive into the conversation. Mr. Yeshen Pillay, good afternoon and welcome to CHIETA podcast.
Good afternoon, Sipho.
Let's dive into the conversation. The digital skills needed today for the artisans. So maybe let's talk about what is an artisan to start our conversation first.
Well, an artisan is someone who applies technical skills and trades. It could be someone from a welder, for example, that's applying a technical skill involved in a trade, or it could be an electrician for that matter. So, artisans used to be our trades. We used to have trade schools, etc. Very different to your engineers, would require both theoretical and practical type of skills. So anyone who's a welder, who's involved in the application of technical skills or trades is quite characterized as an artisan.
So we're talking about the digital opportunities for people who are, as you say, artisans. What are the digital skills that they need to now pick up as the economy changes, the environment changes?
Well, we're certainly living in a digital first era.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is digitalized. And so, digital transformation is not just the hype today. It's the reality that we face. So you have a situation where, what we used to do in terms of manually apply applications of trades is now becoming increasingly more digitized. Let me make the example of mechanical fitters. So your mechanical fitter, for example, today will walk into a factory and find a Siemens machine that requires them to understand what is referred to as G-coding. Now, this is a form of coding where you punch in the code and the machine produces the right size valve or hammer, for that matter. Mechanical fitters therefore need to understand coding.
Okay.
So if you do not understand coding, you will not know how to operate that machine. And this is not the future, this is the present for that matter. So we're seeing a lot more of this, where because of the automation of the factory floor, a lot of your artisans need to know how to apply some of these new technologies, these disruptive technologies, 3D printing, for example, 3D printing technologies, robotics. So an example I made about coding, data analytics, data science, all of this has now fused into artisanship. And so the last 10 years was the decade of the artisan.
Yeah.
The next 10 years will be the decade of the digital artisan. And so we need to prepare our artisans to be digitally savvy. And that means that they need to be skilled in digital skills, digital literacy, data literacy, cyber literacy, and they need to know how to work with machines and apply those skills such as coding, analytics, predictive analytics, working with 3D printing machines, etc.
And for those who don't know, where can they actually study such skills?
A lot of our TVET colleges, so your TVET colleges that we have in the country, 50 of them or so, provide some of these qualifications, training for artisans. We fund these as CHIETA, as a chemical CHIETA. In the last year, we funded 2,525 artisans that we've trained through our funding. And most of these went through to TVET colleges, your technical vocational and education training colleges. And so, learners are encouraged to take up trades, apply for courses at TVET colleges, and many of these are funded by the chemical CHIETA.
And are young people taking up these opportunities in these specific skills?
You know, we have an unfortunate culture in South Africa where an artisan is not viewed as someone who has status, who's has class, so to speak, who has a high reputation, we put on a pedestal. Very different to countries such as Germany, Scandinavian countries such as Finland, Norway, Sweden, where it is actually seen to be the norm to go to a university, become an engineer, and if you don't find opportunities, then go to a TVET and become a welder. That's the norm.
Yeah.
If you had to say that to any one of our engineers, they would think that you are undermining or diminishing their status as an engineer. Why should I go to a TVET college after graduating as a chemical engineer, for that matter? And this is the unfortunate part about our system, in our higher education system, which needs to change, where it should be seen that artisans play an essential role. And by the way, an artisan earns a lot. So they make a hell of a lot of income together with making an impact. And a lot of people don't know this, for that matter. So, and it's not just about the income, by the way. You know, you can also have your own enterprise, run your own business. So I think we need a lot more youth especially to take up a lot of these new trades and occupations. A young person today should know what is a millwright, what does a millwright do, and how do I become a millwright? Because there are hundreds of opportunities for millwrights in the chemical industries.
What is a millwright?
Well, a millwright is someone who actually uses mechanical skills and electrical skills. They maintain machines in a workplace. So I met a millwright recently from Adcock Ingram, and he was taking me through how he first studied electrical, and then combined that with mechanical skills in order to become a millwright, and is now applying that at Adcock Ingram to maintain some of their machines, ensure the machines are well serviced, well maintained, and they are fully operational. So that's what, millwright. And then I had a very good conversation with him as well, sharing about how he also felt that, now as a millwright, after 5 years working at Adcock Ingram, he valued CHIETA's Artisan Entrepreneurship Fund because with his electrical skills, he thinks that you could set up an electrical business and employ more electricians and supply Adcock Ingram and other companies with services through his artisan business.
Is it a case of maybe at high school where young people are not guided properly around particular skills and opportunities, especially around the skill sets that you've been talking about? Where is the problem that we find so many young people studying things that have no opportunities in them?
No, you're absolutely right. I think one part of the problem, which is an essential part, is the lack of targeted career guidance. So we've generalized career guidance, especially at the basic education level. And we deliver these, well-developed, well-designed career guidance booklets with hundreds of careers without actually guiding a young person to say to them, over and above your passion, because your passion could change. You might find another passion later on in life. But today you might have a passion for microbiology. But it doesn't necessarily mean that when you qualify, a job will be waiting for you. You might actually find yourself unemployed because there's no demand in our economy, at least, for microbiologists. So what we're finding is a lot of those who might have a passion, for example, and I'm only using the example of a BSc in microbiology, end up becoming lecturers or end up going into an academic or doing more postdoctoral research, etc. They would have preferred to be employed, but they were not guided correctly. Whereas we should be having targeted career guidance to say, if you are looking for employment opportunities, the careers that are of highest demand in the chemical industries, for example, would be pharmacists. It's highly unlikely that you would be unemployed because there are a whole variety of pharmacists from, a pharmacist that you would find at a pharmacy or a Dis-Chem or Clicks for that matter, any one of our retailers, or regulatory pharmacist if you can't find employment in that area. And so,
in the public sector.
Or in public sector as well. So it's about then guiding a young person at a very basic education level with the right courses, because you need to have mathematics, you need to take physical science, you need to take up those type of courses or those type of subjects, so to speak, so that your career path goes in the direction of pharmacy, for example, and not necessarily microbiology. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with microbiology, but if we have 10,000 microbiologists in the country and we only have 1,000 opportunities, it's not their fault. We should have guided our youth in the right direction. So, I think it's targeted career guidance towards careers that are in high demand in our economy.
You were telling me earlier about the smart centers that CHIETA has set up in rural areas. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So the problem we're trying to address with our smart skill centers is the rising digital divide in the country. So we have a situation, according to Stats SA, where you only have about 13% of rural households that have access to the internet. 13%, just over 13%. And that's the latest data coming out of Stats SA. So most households do not have access to the internet.
True.
They have to leave the household to access the internet. Now, we cannot speak about the fourth industrial revolution when our large part of our rural communities cannot even access the internet, for that matter.
True.
So we've got to bridge this digital divide between urban and rural communities. And to do so, you need digital public infrastructure. So one way of bridging this digital divide, this digital, and there's a rising digital skills divide as well. So urban communities, much more access to digital skills training, digital skills opportunities than rural communities.
Very true.
So what we've then done to address this problem of the digital divide, the rising digital skills divide between urban and rural communities, is to establish digital public infrastructure in the form of smart skill centers.
Okay.
So what is a smart skill center? It's actually a space where someone can access training, skilling, or other opportunities in a digital format using digital technologies such as virtual reality, augmented reality, robotics, and various other forms. And so we've taken these state-of-the-art, which are very expensive, by the way. Virtual reality training machines are not cheap.
No, that's true.
And they're not accessible.
No, they're
and
not.
so we've then provided this free of charge. In rural communities, we have 6 of them. Currently, we started in Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape. That was our first center. We've opened one in KZN in Babanango, which is deep rural Zululand. We opened one in Mojadji's Kloof in rural Limpopo. We had one recently in Highveld, which is sort of peri-urban rural communities in Mpumalanga. And then we have one in the northwest in Brits with Albert TVET College. And then we've got one in the Eastern Cape as well with the PA TVET College. So with these 6 centers, we've reached 12,600 poor and rural community members.
That's amazing.
And they've accessed the center either through walk-ins or 4IR learnerships, or we've got a collaboration together with NEMISA and Microsoft for Microsoft accredited courses that someone can do at the center. And some people just walk in to simply print their CVs or apply for an opportunity such as an apprenticeship or a learnership using the free data and the private internet training pod that is at your disposal at the center. And so with these 6 centers, more than 12,600 beneficiaries, our goal is to have one in each province. And we'll be opening a further 3 in this financial year, one in the Free State, the Northern Cape, and then in Gauteng. In Gauteng, we have partnered with the private sector. PG Glass, one of the largest surface glass coating companies, will be hosting it in their Springs facility for the communities around Springs. So we're very proud of these smart skill centers. They are having a high impact, and they are bridging the digital divide in the country.
And how are young people receptive towards it? I mean, specifically in a rural area. I mean, it must be a shocker to see a young person walking in and seeing virtual reality for the very first time and have access to all these possibilities around the smart skill centers.
Yeah, you know, some of the personal experiences, it's been very memorable. In Babanango, we had a young person that, broke down in tears. And they said to us that, we never thought we would have this state-of-the-art type of technology,
Mm.
or we never thought we would see this type of technology in a small rural community such as Babanango, a multi-million rand center with virtual reality technologies, private internet training pods, cell phone repair training at the center, so you can be trained and set up your own cell phone repair business in Babanango and other rural community surrounding communities, if you like.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those experiences really said to us that this is impactful, that the youth value this. The fact that I can access data, which is costly, free of charge. The fact that I can have a private internet training space where I can close the door behind me and actually take an interview without being disturbed by anyone, and be successful, you know, in that interview process without having to worry about losing connectivity during the interview. The fact that I can access a course at UJ from Babanango in 4IR is for them impactful, and that's the type of feedback we've received.
So is it open to anyone, young people in those specific areas? They can just walk in and apply?
It's open to anyone. We take walk-ins. You simply walk into the center, you register at the reception, you wait for if the internet training pods. So for example, we have in Babanango, we have about 20 to 30 of these internet training pods, and you can simply walk in, or if you want to experience virtual reality technology, what it feels like to be trained as an artisan, so that when you get to the workplace, you don't suffer this technology shock.
True.
And you lose confidence, because the technology can be made available to you, but the technology resistance as a result of you not being confident enough to utilize the technology could lead to less successful outcomes for you. So we're trying to address that technology resistance, increase technology adoption through these smart skill centers as well. And again, as I said, it's open to walk-ins, and you know, we are also providing now for let's say skills development providers who want to run projects at the smart skill center, so you can book, and each one has a smart boardroom.
Oh wow.
So what we've realized is the feedback, you know, from entrepreneurs is that sometimes they just need a space, you know, to book a boardroom.
That's true.
To have a meeting, to pitch to a potential client, to strategize.
Access to a reception area.
Access to a reception, that's all they need. And so we've heard that feedback, and we've now provided in some centers 2 to 3 smart boardrooms.
Wow.
You can book the boardroom if you have a cooperative, or you have an SMME or a startup. And for the whole day, you can plan, you can strategize, you can pitch to potential customers. And so we've got these smart boardrooms available for entrepreneurs as well in each of the smart skills. So it's a very diverse set of opportunities that we're offering.
How important is, I heard you talking about PG Glass, public-private partnerships. How important is it to reduce the unemployment rate, and B, you know, to upskill our communities?
It's absolutely essential, only because of a number of factors. You know, the state does not have the resources, nor do we have all the capabilities that are required to address the problem, for example, of unemployment in the country, or to address inequality in the country, or to address underdevelopment. It can only be done through partnerships, through collaboration. It's only when we pool our resources and our capabilities that we are able to then make an impact. So currently we're making a scratch on this bleak picture of youth unemployment. To make a dent requires collaboration. It requires that partnership. Why? Because we could pool our resources, we could optimize and scale our interventions. So we can establish 9 smart skill centers, 1 in every province. We could probably reach 50,000. There are 3.4 million youth who are not in employment, education, and training. Our 12,600 is a scratch on that picture. And so unless you have a smart skill center on every corner of every street in every community, you're not going to create opportunities for 3.4 million youth who are sitting at home as we speak doing nothing. The only way to achieve that goal is to partner with the private sector, is to get both public and private entities working together, like we're doing with PG Class, and say, where you are, let's set up a smart skill center, let's co-fund it, and let's work towards this goal of saying, to reach that 3.4 million youth, in this case, we need a smart skill center in every community. And together with the private sector, we can achieve that.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the issues of safety and compliance, which is quite critical in the chemical industry as well as in the industry. So how will the issue of safety and compliance have an impact on the digital skills? Are there safety issues around, the digital skills, or do the digital skills reduce the level of safety measures, for instance?
Some of the fascinating courses we are running through some of our smart skill centers. In Saldanha Bay, we are using a training on virtual reality for hazards in the workplace, or virtual reality at heights, or virtual reality for fire extinguishing, for that matter. So what we're seeing is that the technology can enable a safer, more secure working environment, and in this case, virtual reality, where you are trained, to fight hazards. So it is actually going to ensure greater or higher levels of safety and security if we embrace the use of technologies, in this case, virtual reality technologies. And so we've started to train a lot for enhancing safety and security using virtual reality. And these are 3 or 4 courses that I've mentioned where we've actually seen youth being trained on this type of safety and security, because it is very important in the chemical sector, for that matter.
I'll give you one example. I had my first experience of virtual reality, apart from the play game type of virtual reality. So it was a health and wellness day. This company was doing virtual reality, and it was saying, if you have fear, they could use virtual reality. Maybe you've got a fear of heights, maybe you have a fear of being in the ocean, and they put you in this virtual reality, and then all of a sudden it feels so real. So when you talking virtual reality in this particular industry, paint a picture of what it looks like. I'm just trying to think, is it a guy seeing somebody welding something, or what exactly would it look like?
Well, I got to experience it firsthand at the Smart Skills Center when we first opened it, and as we go from once. So we've got these virtual reality training machines for welding. Okay. And at the Orbit TVET College, one of the lecturers was showing us how she lectures using virtual reality. Okay. So it's very impactful during pre-training, because what happens is you get to actually put on the headset, and you then have the screen in front of you, a digital screen, and you given this sort of a digital welding machine, and you can the rod is sort of a digital. The welding rod is not your physical welding rod. Oh, okay. It's a a digitized welding rod, that you see on the screen. Yeah. And so you then with your gloves you pick up the welding rod, and then you start to weld, and it shows you on the virtual screen in front of you. How you are able to use that welding rod and do a weld in a particular setting, for that matter. But then you also get your results to show you that based on the pressure you exerted, based on how you went through this weld, what your score would be, what is the accuracy level, etc. So it's a fascinating experience. One really can't describe it in words properly. You need to try it. Yeah. It's not perfect, but it does lead to certain efficiencies. And let me give an example, Sipo. So, there was a recent study by PwC that indicated that virtual reality can reduce the time it takes to train. So virtual reality, for example, you could train someone in 25 minutes for a program or course that would have taken them 1 hour. So you're reducing the time for training. Second is a major impact on cost reduction. The example I just used of welding, you've now saved the cost of a welding rod. Okay, yeah, that's true. So now you can only imagine at scale. At TVET colleges, for example, if you do your pre-training, without VR, we would have used about 10 welding rods. Now, you then allow the learner to go through 9 welding rods virtually.
Yeah.
When they are ready, you then give them the welding rod to utilize for training. So you've saved 9 welding rods. And at scale, that's a massive cost saving. In fact, we've actually calculated that it can almost reduce your consumable costs by 60%.
Oh my word, that's a lot.
It's a lot of cost saving. So it makes business sense for a lot of industries as well to switch to virtual reality. Not training, pre-training, because you still need to, the touch and feel is essential.
Yeah.
But you spend a lot on pre-training.
Yeah.
And so that cost is then a major cost reduction. So it's a hybrid model that's going to actually be the best solution to these challenges, combining virtual reality with the manual process.
And then, so in order for you to expand in terms of these centers, what do you need as CHIETA? Like, what sort of assistance do you need?
Well, we spend about 3 to 5 million rand on each center because we're using a collaboration model. And I think, just to use an example with PG Glass. So collaboration is the key. So it's not just about resources. It's also about forging the collaborative partnerships with, the right partners as well. Where, we had a fascinating example of how in the glass sector, gaming is proving to be a game changer.
Really?
Yes. So a glass fitter, for example, does a month or 2 using gaming to be trained in glass fitting.
What?
Yeah. And it's PG Glass was saying to us, well, this is the value that they see in our smart skill centers. That you now have the software for gaming, but they would require the hardware. But the hardware is very expensive. So what we're then looking to do is through a smart skill center, you would have a gaming corner. And this gaming corner is designed for glass fitters to gain experience. And once they then gain their experience in gaming, it might take what would have taken 2 months would now take 1 month. So you've reduced the time because of that exposure to gaming for glass fitters in the glass industry.
That's so
provided
smart.
through. And that's one example, a practical example of how a smart skill center can have a major impact in the glass sector, for that matter, through a collaboration between the chemical CHIETA and PG Glass to optimize efficiencies, train better, train more effectively, etc. So I think it's an example of how different types of disruptive technology can be provided at scale through optimizing our resources and capabilities together with the public and private sector working together. So I think we need a lot more collaboration, and we need collaboration at scale, because if not, we will not be making a dent on this big picture. So our call to action is for more companies to join us, and public and other institutions, so that we turn these CHIETA smart skill centers into countrywide smart skill centers. And largely what we're also looking for is most of our partners provide the infrastructure. So we're not building from scratch, because a lot of the infrastructure does exist. It's been underutilized or not utilized at all.
That's so true.
And what we're then doing is to make better use of existing infrastructure. And this is proving to be quite a successful model. The other challenge for most of these centers is that there's very little foot traffic after the big launch.
Okay.
So there's a big launch, the center is now opened. In 3 months, there's not a soul to be found. So you also need a sustainability plan. You need to have a day-to-day model that ensures the communities are engaged, the communities are aware, that people are brought into these smart skill centers on a day-to-day basis by those who are employed in these smart skill centers. And we have an operational model that has allowed currently 12,600 or so to enter, and we're aiming for another 15,000 in the current financial year.
Wow.
So that you don't create white elephants.
True.
Infrastructure that serves no purpose. So that's a big risk. And we think that working together with communities, where you have community ownership, you can address that risk of turning this fascinating infrastructure into white elephants. So it's all these type of factors, I think, that we think through better collaboration with communities as well, that will have a significant impact.
Absolutely. Mr. Yeshan Pillay, it's been wonderful. I mean, I've learned a lot, and thank you very much for the informative conversation between you and I. Just your last parting shots, maybe just to encourage young people to take up these opportunities, and of course, where you are looking to expand also, maybe, you could tell us this is where we might be going next. This is the province we are hoping to partner and go into, but you've already spoken about Gauteng. So your last parting shots, please.
Well, I think, we're also going into the Northern Cape, into Free State, and because we have smart skill centers in all other provinces. And our call to the youth is to say, let's also take advantage of these smart skill centers. Let's make sure that you take the first step. So it's an approach of saying that, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk in, and not simply sit down and relax where I am and complain about the lack of opportunity. So you need to stand up and walk into that center and seize those opportunities. And if you cannot access a job, at least access a skill. So our goal is to say that every youth must have a skill.
True.
What you do with that skill is your responsibility. And you also need to take that responsibility very seriously, because we also live in a global world, and we need to realize that South Africa is not isolated from the global world. So to be competitive, upskill, reskill, and ensure that we utilize those skills. But our goal, I think, is just to ensure that if you're a young person sitting at home, let's ensure that together we have you equipped with a skill, and we meet that goal together.
Absolutely. Fascinating conversation. I could go on and on with Mr. Yeshan Pillay, but this is how we come to the end of our podcast. It's been a wonderful CHIETA podcast, and of course, a great conversation with Mr. Yeshan Pillay. Thank you very much for your time once again, sir.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right. We're signing out. Peace.